How about routes, non-routes? Now, I thought that I'd just throw this out there because this is worthy of discussion. Where do you have people driving? And I brought this up, and one person in Helena said, you know, when I have my people go out there, and especially when it's snowing, I want my people driving only in the snow routes, if possible. Sticking to the snow routes as possible, because those are the roads that I know that they're putting sand down, and I know that they're plowing. We just recently started doing new employee orientation as far as winter driving, kind of bringing up to new employees about what the conditions that they're going to find here in Montana sometimes. And one of the first questions I got from the first group I got up in front of, they said, is this really how the city's going to maintain their roads during the wintertime? I said, yep, this is it, guys. This is what you can expect. We're not big cities. They'll plow the main roads, but a lot of these things they won't get to till days later. And some of the roads they don't get to at all, do they? So what kind of routes do you want people driving? Now, the reason I brought this up, because again, I had a personal experience with this, but I was in the military, and I was put in the weapons safety office there at Maelstrom, and of course I was sent out to the missile field, and I went out with another new guy. They didn't explain all the rules to us. So we got out there, and we were supposed to go to a missile site that was down by Harleton. We drove out, we hit 191 at Eddie's Corners and drove it down to Harleton and went out to the missile site. We were out there for the majority part of the day, but you know, they had 191 was all tore up that year. This is like the early 90s, and it was like, I am not looking forward to having to go back through that nightmare again. So we pulled out the map and we started looking, hey, look, if we take 89 and go up through, you know, past Showdown and Monarch and up and through there, you know, Purdy Drive, it's summertime, we're good to go. So we both voted on it, decided that's the route we were going to take. So we're driving up there, and all of a sudden the radio goes off and it's job control. Where are you guys at? And as soon as they asked that question, I said, do not tell them where we're at. I got a bad feeling about this, that somewhere we're off course. And so he said, well, we're on our way back. He tried to be nondescript. And they said, where exactly are you guys? And I said, oh crap, we're nailed. They knew we weren't where we were supposed to be. The thing is the military pays for certain roads to be maintained. That's one issue. But the other issue is they wanted us to be in a certain, you know, if we had problems, if we had any kind of concerns, if we had to pull off to the side of the road, they wanted us in a position where other people that were out in the missile field would be able to get to us. If we're off doing our own thing in how many other miles uncontrolled, they're not maintaining control of the vehicle. So that's where this kind of this route, or whether you don't want them taking certain routes, kind of came into play. Okay? I don't know whether you guys would find value in it, but I think that it's worth a discussion to think about. Do you want them driving through areas where there's a lot of uncontrolled intersections? Great Falls, I think when I went through with the military and was doing training, 80% of the intersections in Great Falls are uncontrolled. How many of the intersections in Missoula are uncontrolled? So think about that in the different cities and things. Where do you want people driving? Okay. So the travel comes into play as well into this process and into what we're thinking about, what we're talking about. What kind of timelines are we looking at as far as when we want people driving? With my particular job, I kind of shoot myself in the foot. I set the schedule. So when I set the schedule, I'm the one that's responsible for saying, okay, so I spent an 8-hour day, now I got to pick up sticks and I got to go back up to Helena. Or I may have to spend an 8-hour day and I'm driving from Billings to Bozeman, whatever the case may be, but I'm on the road all the time. So it's something to kind of think about in this process as far as what are the timelines that you're expecting your people to travel. Do you want them notifying you where they're at on the road? Talking to one of the SMCs, he says, I was out on the road for 9 days. I didn't have to call anybody. Is that a good thing? Because I was looking at him going, buddy, you should be calling somebody and telling them you're alive and everything's going well. How do they know if they're missing? So a situation that we had years ago when I was with the Air Force again was we had a family that decided on Sunday they were just going to go up to the mountains and have a good time. You know, they had a place up in the mountains that they liked driving through, and they had a 4-wheel drive vehicle. And the only reason that they knew he was missing because the next day he wasn't at work. They tried to make all the phone calls. They called their friends. They called family. Do you know where they went? No, they didn't tell anybody where they went. Finally, one of their friends said, you know, I have a clue as to where they might be. There's a place in the mountains they like to go. Let me just drive up there and find out. And sure enough, they were there. They survived overnight, 2 kids, husband and wife, on 4 candy bars and 1 can of pop. So again, do you want, what kind of routes are they taking, and do you want them notifying you of what they're doing? And I think that that's a thought process that needs to take place when you're looking at this safety program as well. How about an emergency kit or a survival kit? And to me, there is a difference between the two. An emergency kit, these are the things that you need to have when you're out there and if you're going to have to do certain things to help yourselves out. How about cell phones? Obviously, you know, they should have a way of contacting, asking for help. Now, I still look at the map that Verizon keeps putting up on their commercials, and they say, look at how much of the country we cover. I don't focus on the rest of the country. I just look at all the white I still see up in the Montana area. Okay? But I think that we need to have cell phones so that at least we have a way of hopefully, you know, staying in contact with folks. Flares, roadside triangle, where do you want those things put out? Somebody was just recently telling me that when we were talking about this, they said, yeah, I crested the hill, and all of a sudden, just as I got over the top of the hill, here's a fireman in the middle of the road flagging me down, and it's like I almost took him out. And then the guy said, you know, slow down your speed. He didn't get to the accident scene until like almost 4 or 5 miles down the road. That's a little too far out. So really you should be bringing that in, but you should let them know about how far out you need to go, okay? Jumper cables, duct tape. Isn't duct tape a marvelous tool? It is a tool. I saw that listed the other day as far as duct tape is actually considered a tool, not a material, but a tool. Think of all the things you can do with duct tape. You can cover, you know, if you have a leaking hose or something like that, you can wrap that up. The other day I pulled up behind someone, their whole back bumper was duct tape. So when you think about it, there's a lot of uses for duct tape, so you can put that in. How about wire? And this is more my time as a jet engine mechanic is baling wire, but wire will hold things into place. So the first and only deer I ever hit with a state rig, you know, it took out my entire front grill. And I called them up, motor pool, and I said, hey, look, I hit the deer. Is there anything I have to do? They said, no, you can go about your business, do whatever you have to do, and then, you know, bring the vehicle back. And I thought I had left it running, so everything looked good. This was up at Kalispell. I was just outside Kalispell a little bit. So I went ahead and made my appointment up in Troy. When I stopped the car and got out, turned it off, went inside, came out, and man, it was leaking antifreeze like nobody's business. So when I came out, I had to stop about every hour after that, making sure that I had fluids on the way home. But the headlights I had noticed weren't in right. So I bought some baling wire and had the headlights put into place so that wired into place so that I could drive home that day. So there are some things that you can do with different tools, wire and that kind of stuff, but you should have shovel, you should have a way of digging yourself if you need to. And having sand in there offers weight, but it also gives you a little bit of something that you can throw out there and get some traction with, okay? If I'd thought about it, I would have put flashlight under the emergency kit in actuality, okay? Somebody had a comment or anything? Okay. Survival kit. One of the things you want your people to understand is they got to stay with the vehicle. They're going to find the vehicle long before they'll ever find someone on foot. Okay? So to stay with the vehicle, give them plenty of blankets, warm clothes, extra clothes, but you want to make sure they had food and water to survive on. Okay? Now what that means is you can't just build the survival kit, throw it in the back of the car, and it stays there forever. You constantly have to be pulling the food and the water back out and refreshing that from time to time, every 3 months or every 6 months or so, to make sure, candy bars after a while will go bad. So there's some things you want to look at there. Candles. You can, if you use a coffee can, you can put you want to take 2 coffee cans, by the way. You know what the one use is for, all right? But the other use for is that, you can put a candle in there and you can get some heat off of that. But keep in mind, anytime you have an open flame, you're going to have what? Carbon monoxide. So just keep in mind that you kind of have to crack a window and that kind of thing. So that's things that you want to train on. How about matches? You guys ever, those paper ones, you know what they're called? This is an old Boy Scout thing, by the way. They're called gophers. You light one, you go for another. So when you talk about matches, you want to have either waterproof matches or the wooden stick matches, because those are going to be the best matches possible. Okay? Those paper ones, if they get wet, they're toast. You won't be able to use them again. Okay? How about incident reporting? When do you want your people reporting in? And what kind of incidences do you want them? If it was a close call, do you want to know about that? Are you tracking those kind of things? You want them to kind of let you know with what's going on with the road conditions too. So if they're running into a situation, that you kind of have an idea of how bad things are out there. But I think it's important that you have open communication with your folks. Okay. And how about accountability? Now, we kind of talked about this with people-based safety, and part of the accountability is just to remember that consequences are both good and bad for every action that they take. So again, setting those expectations, you still want to hold your people to some kind of level of responsibility. So there's going to be both good and bad consequences. There should be good consequences if they meet all the rules like they should be. Okay?